Hello, dear friends. Thank you for joining us tonight for the virtual town hall. And this is our very first. We hope to have many more of these in the future. I want to thank the candidates that have responded. We've asked each and every one to respond, and many have responded, by the way, being part of this tonight. We're thankful for the questions that will be asked. And I want to let all the candidates know that you're on friendly turf at North Valley Baptist Church here in Santa Clara, California. My name is Jack Treber. I'm the pastor, and we have tried our very best to be kind to those in authority. The Bible commands us to pray for those in authority. So on my prayer journal daily, I have political leaders from the nation and from the local area here and our county that I pray for every single day. That's my Bible command. The church, God's people, are commanded to pray. We are commanded to honor the King. We are commanded to remember that righteousness exalteth the nation, but sin is a reproach. So we as a church, though we don't endorse individual candidates today, we are looking for people that want to do right, righteous, the Bible declares. And that's why we host this tonight, so that we can have an opportunity to hear what you believe and what you stand for. Thank you, public servants, for all that you do for us. And I would pledge that every Christian ought to be praying for these people, for wisdom, for their safety. And I want to thank you so very much for listening tonight. It's going to be a great night. Several of our men will help us, but one of our pastors, Pastor Cooper, will sort of head this up for us. Thank you again. God bless each of you.
Good evening. I'm excited to welcome you to a historic event as the North Valley Baptist Church hosts our first annual Santa Clara Town Hall. I want to welcome the many citizens of Santa Clara County and then our city of Santa Clara, as well as those around the nation and the world who are tuned in this evening. Also, thank you to our candidates from these various races who have chosen to take part in tonight's Town Hall. We love America here at North Valley Baptist Church. We believe this is the greatest nation on the face of the planet. There's a quote that says, all the ills of democracy can be cured with more democracy. What that means is, in essence, if you don't like how things are, then vote. There's a long list of things that make America an exceptional nation. We could talk about the patriots who died to give us our liberty. We could talk about the documents that shaped our founding and have guided our country. We could mention that our nation is a nation of liberty and justice for all. But one of the things that makes America such an exceptional place is that every citizen, regardless of your race, your color, your creed, or your religion, all of us have an equal voice and an equal vote to shape the future and the direction of our country. It's said every year, this is the most important election cycle of our lifetime. But it's true every time it's said, and this year is no exception. I believe America is at a very pivotal place in our history. This election cycle is a very important election cycle. We want you to prayerfully consider tonight, as you listen to these candidates, where they stand on issues and how where they stand will affect you and the life you live in Santa Clara County and in the city of Santa Clara. Tonight it's my honor to introduce you to Neil Malmon. He's the president of the Values Advocacy Council. He's an engineer, a scientist, and a published author. You know, they often say that religion and politics don't mix, but for you and I, it's impossible as believers to separate our faith from our vote. Neil is going to speak to us about the principles that connect faith and politics. And he's also going to introduce you and I to several key propositions that are on the ballot this election cycle. It's my privilege now to introduce you to Neil Malmon.
Hi, my name is Neil Malmon. I'm an engineer during the day, and I teach apologetics at night. I lead an organization called the Values Advocacy Council. It's basically an organization that advocates for Christian involvement in politics. Our website is vac.org, where you can find out more about what I'm going to speak about. I'm also an author and a technology scientist by trade. A few years ago, I wrote a book called Jesus is Involved in Politics, Why Aren't You? I'd like to speak on the local ballot propositions to help you make an informed decision about how to vote. I want to first share with you some basic principles, biblical ways to make decisions regarding the laws for yourself, so that in the future you can make up your mind on your own. So for this session, we're just going to talk about the principles behind voting. Let's start with this. Most people forget this. Most people think we have constitutional rights. We don't have constitutional rights. Why? Because the Constitution does not give you any rights. What does the Declaration of Independence say? It says, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, endowed by their who? By their Creator. You see, our rights don't come from the Constitution, they come from the Creator. In fact, the Constitution is a list of negative rights. It tells you what the government cannot do. So amongst these rights are what? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So rights come from our Creator. Then why do we need a government? Well, the next line in that Declaration of Independence clearly articulates that. It says that to secure these rights, governments are instituted amongst men. So therefore, our rights are to be protected by the government. Not that because the government gave us those rights, but because we create them to protect our rights. And that's the sole reason why governments are there for. They're not there to provide charity, nor are they to negotiate, there to negotiate contracts or tell us what we can and cannot negotiate with each other. So the next principle I want to talk about is government charity. Every dollar you give to the government for charity purposes, only about 15 cents gets to the poor person who needs it. Why? Because the rest of the money goes to government pensions, buildings, programs, and salaries, right? So only 15 cents gets to the poor person, 85 cents goes to expenses. But that's the opposite if you give money to a church. If you give money to a church or a charity that takes care of the poor, 85 cents gets to the poor person, maybe 15 cents being retained for administrative purposes. See, Christians in the church are responsible for successful charity in America, not the government. The church is 6 times more efficient than the government. Number 3, lack of money is not a problem in our government. Efficiency and good stewardship is. Government has a tendency to make emotional pleas. You'll see all these things. Oh, it's for the children, it's for the firefighters. They'll come up with all these reasons why they should raise their taxes. But if it's something that the public really needs, if it's new or they need more money, then you should avoid the emotional angle. Why? Because government has plenty of money, but they're wasting it. All they have to do is say, look, you need to figure out how to live within your means and reallocate the money that we're already giving you and assign it to that. If children are starving, you better take away from something else that is not necessary, and there's a lot of that in government. Number 4, a bond. A lot of times you'll see things on the ballot calling for bonds. Bonds are actually a horrible way to pay for something. Why? Because a bond is a loan. A bond costs 2 to 3 times what the tax would have cost. For instance, if something's going to cost $5 billion, once you do a bond, it's almost $10 or $12 billion. It's more expensive. You know, government needs to live within their means, not borrow money. If I don't have enough money, I don't go out and borrow at twice the amount and then pay that for something I need. What I do is I say, look, we're not going to go out to dinner more. We're going to spend less on this. We're going to buy a used car or something. Government needs to learn how to do that. Okay, and then finally for this session, no new taxes. Why? Because any law that adds more taxes is going to go to waste. So no new taxes, and any law that reduces taxes for anyone is a good law. So let's stop with that, and we'll come back and we'll talk about the actual propositions and some more principles next time. Thank you.
We reached out to several candidates that are running for different positions in Santa Clara County and in Santa Clara. Tonight, we'll have several candidates joining us live via Zoom. Also, other candidates have given us some pre-recorded messages. Tonight, I want to start off our town hall by introducing you to 2 candidates in District 4. Both candidates were given equal opportunity to provide us with a pre-recorded message. These candidates are Theresa O'Neill and Kevin Park. Tonight, we'll hear from Theresa O'Neill. I want to introduce you to her now.
Good afternoon. I'm Theresa O'Neill, and I'm a candidate for re-election to Santa Clara City Council District 4. Thank you to the North Valley Baptist Church for making this opportunity to us today. The most important thing I want to emphasize for the most priority is we have to continue to manage this COVID crisis that we are all in. It was something that was unforeseen, but thank goodness Santa Clara and the City Council had been building reserves to the point that we are in a much better position to navigate our way through this crisis than almost all the cities around us. We need to make sure that residents don't fall through the cracks, that they don't lose their housing, that they continue to be fed, and that all of their basic human needs are met, because otherwise we will have a community in crisis. Part of keeping our community safe is making sure we maintain public safety, which has a great reputation in Santa Clara. Our police, fire, EMS are an essential part of what this community is about. My next priority is also to maintain the electric, water, streets, sewer infrastructure, which those are all the things that we need to keep our lives going well on a daily basis. So I would appreciate your support in the November 3rd election. Thank you.
We're about to move into our first live segment of tonight's town hall. We're going to go to District 1. The candidates are Kathy Watanabe and Habir Bhatia. I want to introduce you to both of these candidates. First, Kathy Watanabe. As the seated incumbent city council member since 2016, some of Kathy's achievements include opening Northside Library on Sundays and additional weekday hours, a new public bathroom to Fairway Glen Park that will open soon, strengthening an ordinance to deter street racing and sideshows. Her platform continues to be protecting neighborhoods from negative stadium impacts, mitigating airplane noise from the airport, and restricting RV parking in neighborhoods. She believes our city must generate revenue to keep us sustainable. She's helped steer the Related City Place project, which will break ground in 2021, contributing millions of dollars annually into the city general fund for decades. The project will also provide jobs in restaurants for our North Side neighborhoods and Santa Clara's future. Some of her endorsements include Santa Clara Police Officers Association, South Bay Labor Council, the Teamsters Union 350, Teamsters Union 856, IAFF 1171, the Firefighters Union, League of Conservation Voters, California Apartment Association, Dawn, Democratic Activist for Women Now, Pat Nicolai, retired chief, Santa Clara Police Department, and Lisa Gilmore, mayor of Santa Clara, among others. She's running against Kathy Watanabe, Habir Bhatia. Habir has a master's in engineering management from Santa Clara University and is currently employed as a community benefit consultant. That she says makes her highly qualified for creating a sustainable and brighter future for Santa Clara. She's served on the Santa Clara Library Foundation, Cultural Commission, Silicon Valley Central Chamber of Commerce, and Santa Clara Rotary Club. She also started the Rivermark and Northside Community and Maryville Residents Community Groups. If elected, Habir says she'll focus on economic growth, reducing the $34 million deficit, collaboration, improving governance with technology, affordable housing, living wage jobs, climate solutions, youth leadership, small businesses, revenue from Levi's Stadium, and she'll strive for better agreements. Some of her endorsements include Santa Clara Democratic Party, the Silicon Valley APA Democratic Club, the LGBT Baymek Organization, the Mercury News, the LGBT Stonewall Democrats of the Silicon Valley. She's also endorsed by California State Assembly members Evan Lowe, Eloise Reyes, Sharon Quirk, and State Senator Jim Beal, Patricia Meehan, former mayor of the city of Santa Clara. I want to welcome you both to tonight's town hall, and it is our honor to host you, and we don't take it for granted or take it lightly that you would make time to be with us. We're very interested to hear from you this evening. As we get into this first live segment, I want to cover quickly the rules and the format for the question and answer period. As the moderator, I'll be asking you a series of questions. Each candidate will have an opportunity to answer each question without being interrupted from the opposing candidate. If a candidate interrupts or interjects the opposing candidate while they're speaking, they'll receive a warning. If interruptions persist, the candidate making the interruptions will be asked to discontinue their portion of the question and answer period. When a yes or no question is asked, each candidate is required to answer first yes, no, or I abstain from answering. Once providing one of those three answer choices, the candidate will then be given 1 minute to elaborate on their response. When an agree or disagree question is asked, each candidate is required to first answer agree, disagree, or I abstain from answering. Once providing one of those three answer choices, the candidate will then be given 1 minute to elaborate on their response. When asked a specific question that does not garner a yes or a no, an agree or a disagree answer, each candidate will be given 1 minute for a general response. We'll begin with our first question this evening. And first, I'd like to address Kathy Watanabe, I'd like to ask you the first question, and then we'll give the same question in just a moment to Habir Bhatia. Question number one is this. What is your position regarding the city of Santa Clara having 6 districts? Ms. Watanabe.
Thank you for the question. I think the 6 districts is working just fine right now. It has provided an opportunity to be able to cover a smaller district and meet with residents. However, during COVID, it's been difficult because in the past when I ran, I was able to knock on doors. This time I'm not knocking on doors unless I run into somebody. It was very, coming up with the districts took a lot of time. A charter review committee was convened, and the charter review committee actually proposed to the city council for 3 districts, 2 representatives per district. And we felt that that was a wonderful way to be able to give our Santa Clarans the opportunity to vote in every other election, in every election, excuse me, both gubernatorial as well as presidential, because we found that Santa Clarans do like to vote. The ballot Measure C, however, didn't pass, and so we went to the 6 districts. And so until we hear from the judge on the appeal, the CVRA lawsuit that we appealed, we don't know what's going to happen. The current 6 districts is in effect until
sorry to interrupt you. We're
2022.
Sorry, thank you for that answer, by the way, but we're just going to try to stick to the 1-minute answer. So
okay, thank you. I didn't know, and I didn't see a clock, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah,
thank
no problem. Thank you for that answer. I'd like to ask the same question now to Ms. Bhatia. What is your position regarding the city of Santa Clara having 6 districts? We have 1 minute to
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. I think that's a really important question as we are now arriving at November 3rd. The 6 districts have proven that they allow local residents to choose somebody that they feel that really represents them. And that increases the diversity of voices. And this does not mean it has to be about race. I want to be very clear about that. Now, our district specifically is 65+% actually minority, which is one type of diversity. But the other type of diversity that we should speak about is diversity of thought. And having smaller groups of areas allow new types of council members to come in ensures that we get the best brain power we can bring to our council. And I've seen the success of that. 2018, we saw Rod Chahal, a minority leader, and a grassroots leader, Karen Hardy, and she's an amazing lady, come and be a part of our council. We had new ideas, we have new ways of looking at the problems, and I think that's really critical. So as we enter now 2020, it's really important that everybody takes the power of their voice through the vote and comes out and votes for somebody that they believe can be truly a representative.
Thank you. I appreciate that answer. The second question tonight, we'll stay with you, Ms. Bhatia. I'll ask you this first. This is sort of a topic that we're hearing often, especially in this election cycle. Over the past several years, local law enforcement agencies such as the San Jose Police, Santa Clara Police, and the Santa Clara County Sheriff have advocated for additional funding, citing that they're underfunded. An example of this was Measure G in 2016, which was a quarter-cent sales tax. Now many are advocating for reducing and some even defunding local police departments. I'd like to ask the question, do you agree with defunding the police departments?
Could you say the last part again, please?
I'd like to ask, do you agree with the defunding of police departments?
Well, thank you. I'm just going to repeat what you asked me. So you asked me, do I agree with defunding of the police? Mm-hmm. I personally believe that's the wrong phrase to use. I understand people are feeling some real pain, and that makes them helps them understand how to express that anxiety that they're feeling and the concern they have, which is really true for many of them. But right now, we're not ready to just turn off the switch. I think what they really need to see is reform. They're looking for us to think about ways to de-escalate. How do we use less violence? Do we always need to use the police to handle all types of cases? For example, homelessness. And you know what's going on right now. Homelessness is increasing tremendously because of the economic gaps that we have in our society. So I do believe that we need to take the opportunity to revisit who goes, where they go, when they go, and do we have any other great trainings we can offer to our police officers that help them deal with mental health, with domestic violence, and then decide who should go to them versus deciding do we defund or not, or reallocate budget.
Okay, thank you for that answer. I'd like to ask Ms. Watanabe the same thing. Do you agree with the measures that some are taking and the things that we're hearing as far as defunding the police departments? Yes or no?
No, I don't believe our police department needs to be defunded. I feel that there are ways that, and actually our police department has already taken action as a result of the Black Lives Matter movement, and also President Barack Obama's initiative to change, to commit to change. And our police chief, Pat Nicolai, has signed on to that, along with the mayor, Lisa Gilmore, and they have already explored ways of changing policies in the police department and reviewing those policies as well. I believe our officers are in need of, or could require additional training in terms of mental health services, dealing with people that need mental health services. Funnily enough, I talked to a sheriff just over the weekend, and he talked about how the police are needed right on the front line. I mean, when you go into a situation, the police are needed right there and then. And then to have backup, to have, depending on what the situation requires, to have the appropriate people in place. So I believe everybody needs to work together, but the police department does not need to be defunded. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. Question number 3, we'll stay with Kathy for this question. The National Democratic Party platform for 2020 states, we believe that if you're not old enough to drink, you're not old enough to be sentenced to life without parole. Do you believe that an 18, 19, or 20-year-old criminal offender convicted of a heinous crime such as murder in the first degree should be exempt from life imprisonment without parole?
No, I don't. You know, an 18, 19, 20-year-old are still in the process of forming, you know, their opinions on things, and I believe that there's always the opportunity for a person to reform themselves. There have been many great stories that have taken place over the years of how people have reformed their lives and become great products of society and been examples as a result of you know, maybe their youth and how they changed. So no, I don't agree with that, and because I believe that within all of us, there is always the opportunity to change. I mean, people's lifestyles, maybe where they came from, has had an impact on their lives, and so, but with correction and assistance, maybe help, whatever exactly is needed, that everybody can be reformed. So I don't agree with that.
Okay, so just to clarify, you believe that they should be exempt?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay. Let me ask the same question then to Javier, if I can. I don't know if do you want me to repeat the question, or do you get the gist
Yes,
of
please.
it? Okay. Do you believe that an 18, 19, or 20-year-old criminal offender who's been convicted of heinous crimes like murder in the first degree should be exempt from life imprisonment without parole?
Okay, so this is one of those cases. This is not a yes or no answer, and I don't mean to sound like I'm avoiding the question. The reason is we have to judge each case by itself. But if you were to ask me, do I believe all cases should be sentenced without parole? No. But if your question is really, should they be exempt? In most cases, I would expect so, because they are still developing and they are going through massive change. And it really is important to understand the circumstances of why and what has happened. And in most cases, we have seen that these types of crimes, or crimes in general, happen because of social issues in society. So it's important to take efforts to reform, and it doesn't help the criminal justice system to keep putting people in jails. That doesn't work either. We need to think about how do we help bring these people back? Sometimes it's as faith, sometimes it's, medical help, sometimes it's physical help. But the point is that people need to have that opportunity, and they should be able to show themselves, to prove themselves.
Just to ask a follow-up question.
Sure, please.
Recently I read the Democratic Party would like to lower the voting age to, I think it was 17 that I read. Is that not sort of contradictory, in your opinion, to say that a criminal offender in that age, they're still developing, and yet we would entrust a vote to somebody of the same age? You can follow up.
Who is that question to?
Since you just answered, I'll let you go first.
Oh, sure. Okay. Thank you. That's a really good question. I actually battled with this question a lot because I think about the fact that we're able to send soldiers to represent us as youngsters across the world, putting their lives at risk for us. And I take real pride in that fact because I have a lot of family members and friends that are in the armed military forces. And I think about them and I think, how can I let that happen? But then I realize there's two sides to the same thing, right? Just because you're not fully there doesn't mean you don't have an opportunity, which is why obviously they are being judged as an adult. But the question is about parole. This is not a question about should they receive sentencing. So this is where it isn't something that should be as a simple yes or no answer. This requires us to really analyze the issue itself, individual case by case, but we also need to figure out ways to bring people back into society when there's room to do so versus closing the door altogether.
Let's go ahead and go to our next question. And I'm sorry, Phil, if I've been asking you several in a row, but we're on your turn still. So we'll go again.
I love this.
All right, with Ms. Batia. Do you think that our rights come from the Constitution? If not, where do they come from? And what is the government's role when it comes to individual rights?
So that's a really powerful question you're asking. Coming from a person of faith and talking to a person of faith, my personal belief system, I'm sure you might know this already. I come from the Sikh tradition, which is really more a way of life. And in our perspective, and I heard the gentleman in the beginning who said he was also an engineer and said that, per his belief, and I believe that mine is very similar, that these rights are given to us through God, and it is the responsibility of society to make sure we enforce them. But how we enforce them is the tricky part, right? Do we enforce them with our own personal agenda or personal bias, or do we enforce them with the rights that we believe everyone is inherently born with, the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? And for me, that is a very much part of my faith, where I see all are equal, and that we believe in that there's humanity first besides anything else. And if I see equality in all, then I think everybody deserves the same.
Thank you for that answer. Ms. Watanabe, I'd like to ask you the same question. Do you think that our rights come from the Constitution? If not, where do they come from? And then what is the government's role when it comes to individual rights?
Yes, I do believe that our rights do come from the Constitution. I mean, that's what our forefathers created, the Bill of Rights. And so that's what we base our laws, our government. I mean, it's based on the Constitution. As for the government and my rights, I mean, the government does play a part in guiding us, and to do the right thing by our communities and by our lives. I think that's what the government is there to do. However, at the same time, I mean, we still have. I see my time is up. My time is up.
Thank you for that answer. I'm going to stay with you. This will be our final question for this first live segment. And again, thank you both for joining us this evening. This is a question that has been very close to us here. And I would like to ask you tonight, do you believe that local government, such as county or the city, has the right to impede, limit, or close down religious places of worship, as we've seen happen during the COVID-19 pandemic? Is that we'd like to hear a yes, no. You can abstain and then give us a clarification on your answer. And Ms. Watanabe, we'll start with you.
I'm going to ask you to repeat the question, please.
Sure. Do you believe that local government, such as the county or the city, has the right to impede, limit, or close down religious places of worship, as we've seen happen in Santa Clara during the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yes, excuse me, I hear you now. Okay. What happened during COVID-19 and what the city did in terms of working with the county. We don't make the decisions. We follow the county medical director's directive, and that is what we are elected to do and to enforce and abide. In terms of what happened with North Valley Baptist Church, I know that our emergency services officer, as well as the mayor, worked with Pastor Trieber and to work out something that would be beneficial to all. We understand, people want to worship, and we want to abide, but at the same time, we want to abide by the county's requests, because at the same time, the health of residents is first and foremost.
Okay, thank you for that answer. I'd like to ask Habir the same question. Do you believe that local government, such as the county or the city, has the right to impede, limit, or close down religious places of worship? And that's been a hot topic lately. I'd love to hear where you stand on that.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, because I think that is a very critical question you have. So the question isn't about impeding. The question we should be, well, maybe we shouldn't say the question. The thought I have isn't about impeding. I think the thought I have is, how do we find ways to help our centers stay open? Faith is a really critical element of many people's lives, and it gives them strength and times of challenge. And as I was talking about earlier about the Sikh tradition, there's a lot of gurdwaras in the area, and it was very difficult for a lot of the elders to not have that support system. And we had to creatively work together. So what I found was that I would have liked to see support systems that find ways to keep these centers open and help them be accessible. And I think that's where we're learning that these are the opportunities for people like all of us to step in and suggest, hey, this is what we should be doing to make sure that these type of centers can continue to serve, but also keep everybody safe. And that's where we have to give those ideas to the county to make that happen, versus it just being a one-directional conversation.
Thank you for that answer. Just for clarification, would it be a yes or a no?
Well, that's it. It's neither, because we have to make sure that if every person was this engaged and they were that thoughtful, we wouldn't even need government. So for me to say a yes or a no would be just unjust and untruthful.
Well, thank you for that. Ladies, thank you so much for joining. And this is our first town hall, hopefully be an annual thing, and you're a part of that, and we want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule to join us this evening. At this time, we're going to hear from Neil Malmon again, and he'll be speaking to us on some important propositions that we need to be made aware of in this election cycle. Here's Neil.
Okay, welcome back. Thank you. In this session, we're going to go through two of the propositions. These are the only two propositions that I would recommend that you vote yes on. I recommend you vote no on all the other propositions. And we'll also talk about some important facts about Christians in voting. First of all is Proposition 20. That's tougher on parole and property crimes. See, ever since they passed the laws that made it not a felony to steal anything under $950, guess what? All the people who are of criminal intent have been going out and making sure that what they steal is less than $950. Why? Because they can't be prosecuted. So guess what? All the crimes have been going up on those lower levels. That means your house, your car, if you have a used car that's not worth more than $500 according to the government, guess what? They're not going to come after you. And the police aren't even going to come out because it doesn't pay for them to go after those criminals. So this proposition, Proposition 20, fixes those, and I'm recommending a yes on Prop 20. Proposition 22, this is the other proposition that I recommend that you vote yes on. This is special workplace rules for a gig economy. This law is to counteract something called crony corporatism. Crony corporatism is when larger companies, like certain unions and some companies, like taxi companies, wanted to stop companies like Uber and Lyft from competing with them. So they come up with this false narrative about worker oppression. Nobody's oppressed who works for Uber or Lyft. You don't have to work for them. You can go work for some other company or McDonald's. But the beauty about Uber and Lyft, it allows you to work for them when you want and how you want. And even if you can't qualify for another job, as long as you have a good reputation, and you don't have a criminal record, and you have a good license driving record, you can work for them. So the other side wanted to pass a law to stop them, and they did. And that's what they did in Sacramento. So this proposition says, we the people get to choose. So vote yes on Prop 22. Now, I want to tell you about a situation that you find yourself in. Today you're finding yourself in a battle with the city and the county. Well, here's the truth of it. This is not really a battle between God-hating, left-leaning socialists who hate God's laws and Earth's followers. It's not the battle. That's not what the battle is. We don't need you to go out and convince every non-Christian how to vote for godly things. We don't need you to go out and convince every non-Christian to help us open up the church necessarily. You see, the battle is right here in our churches. The battle is between people of us, brothers and sisters in Christ. Why do I say that? Here's why I say that. See, the reason we're in this dilemma is simply because there aren't enough Christians sitting on the county supervisory board. There aren't any Christians in City Hall or in Sacramento or even Washington, D.C. But where you go? Aren't we a tiny minority? We can't even get good people elected. How are we going to take over those other places and get Christians in those places? Well, here's the truth. Did you know that there are more churchgoers and more Christians today than in 1776 when the Constitution was written? If you want evidence, go to our website. You see, while church attendance is down from 1906, when it was about 51%, did you know that today there are more churchgoers than there were when we fought the Civil War, when the Christians raised up a party to fight the Civil War and free the slaves? There are more Christians today than when we freed the slaves. So why are we pretending we're a victimized minority? See, here's the problem. It turns out there are about 60 million evangelicals, just evangelicals. We're not talking about any other denomination, none of the mainstream denominations or the Catholics, right? I'm just talking about the Christians. It turns out there are about 60 million of us of voting age, and yet every year we lose elections between 3 million to 10 million votes. 3 million to 10 million nationwide. But here's the problem. With 60 million evangelicals in America, 40 million of us do not vote. 40 million do not vote. If we just got a quarter of those people out to vote, we'd win every election in every state and every county probably. Folks, it would be one thing if our nation was trending towards Sodom and Gomorrah because of what the evildoers were doing. But it's another thing completely when it's because of what the Christians are not doing. We're not getting involved with our legislator. We're not getting involved in our laws. We've been hiding in our churches thinking that we're this oppressed minority when we're a greater minority than when this country was founded. Here's what we need to do. We need to double our vote. How do we do that? If you are a Christian voter, you likely have many brothers and sisters in Christ and friends and family who share your Christian values, who share your biblical values, but don't vote. So here's how you do that. You just need to find, between now and the election, you just need to find one person who doesn't vote. One person who doesn't vote, and help them register. Go to www.vote.org to register. Then when their ballot arrives, help them fill out the ballot with the ballot proposition suggestions and the people that we have on the ballot. And then take them to the polling booth and drop off the ballot, or have them sign on the back, and then sign on the back to allow you to drop it off. Won't you commit yourself to finding just one non-voting Christian brother or sister? You don't have to argue with anybody. You just have to take someone who already agrees with all our principles and get them out to the polling booth. And then make sure they vote for godly things. Make a commitment right now as you're listening to this that you will do that this week, that you will find one person who doesn't vote and get them to vote. Folks, the only reason that the churches were hit with a $100,000 fine is because there aren't enough of us on the Board of Supervisors. There aren't enough of us on City Council, or the school board, or the Capitol in Sacramento, or the halls of Congress. A friend of mine committed suicide a month ago, and he would not have had he been in church surrounded by his friends and the support group. Do you think the church is important? At the VAC this week, we're going to have a psychologist talk about how much the suicides have gone up, how the depression is going up, how death from other ailments that normally wouldn't be a problem are going up. Do you think the church is important? Should we care who makes our laws? Brothers and sisters, the best part of this is you don't need to convince a single liberal, a single non-Christian. You just have to convince your brother and sister and get them to double your vote. Thank you.
Next, we have two pre-recorded messages from District 6 candidates Gary Barb and Anthony Becker. Stay tuned and watch these videos, and prayerfully consider, as we said before, what you'll do with your vote this election cycle. Here are the candidates from District 6.
Hi everyone, my name is Gary Barb. That's Barb spelled B-A-R-V-E, and I'm running for City Council in Santa Clara District 6. I believe I'm the only Republican candidate running for City Council in our city, and I am a huge supporter of our President, Donald J. Trump. I am a computer engineer, and I have a master's degree in business administration in entrepreneurial strategy from Southern Methodist University in Dallas, Texas. I believe we are the greatest country on earth for many reasons, such as our incredible entrepreneurial spirit and our pursuit for freedom and happiness and joy. However, I believe the United States of America is primarily the greatest country on earth because of the incredible American people. I love our country, I love our city, and I want to get married to a woman I love in Santa Clara and have children and raise my children in Santa Clara. However, I believe we need to get leadership in our city that supports conservative Republican values. That's very important. I believe I am such a candidate, and I humbly ask for your support. I humbly ask for your vote as I run for City Council in Santa Clara District 6. Again, my name is Gary Barb. That's Barb spelled B-A-R-V-E. May God bless the United States of America, and may God bless the incredible people of our country. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Anthony Becker and I'm running for Santa Clara City Council, District number 6. This race is about the heart and soul of Santa Clara. On one hand you have the future, and on the other you have the same reruns that happen year after year. I was born in Santa Clara in 1985 at the old Kaiser Hospital. I have grown up in this city and privileged to do so. I want others to have the same benefits that I had in this same city. I played in the parks, I went to Bullwinkle's, Great America, the billiards hall on Stevens Creek, and Moonlight Lanes. These pastimes are gone. Our city is at a crossroads. We have 1 foot in the future and 1 foot in the past, and we are lost somewhere between yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Our city has changed from the small town charm to the new steel and glass concrete canyons. Our city's in the big leagues now. Our city has major issues to plan for in the future. I will deliver the affordable housing. I will champion the new downtown. I will end the CVRA lawsuit and work to reduce our $34 million in deficits. I will bring AI solutions to traffic and bring equity to our communities. Times are tough, but it only makes us tougher. I rise every morning determined to serve my community. I walk neighborhoods to meet every single one of you. And at the end of the night, when I'm tired and worn, I realize how much it's worth. I have the strength, the faith, and an endurance to lead. As your council member, together we will build a safer, stronger Santa Clara to believe in. I will always put the community first and the politics last, and establish posterity for the future descendants. I refuse to be in the pocket of anyone. That's why I refused any special interest money or money from the 49ers. Your priorities are my priorities. I respectfully ask for your votes by November 3rd. For more about me, go to www.becker2020.com. May God bless the city of Santa Clara and all of our communities. Thank you.
Now I'd like to introduce you to two candidates running for the Board of Supervisors. We have Assemblyman Kansan Chu and Otto Lee. I want to introduce you to these two men. Kansan Chu was born in Taiwan and moved to the United States in 1976 as a graduate student. He obtained a master's in electrical engineering from Cal State Northridge and worked as a microdiagnostics microprogrammer at IBM for 18 years. In 2002, Kansan was elected to the Berryessa Union School Board. In 2009, he was elected and served on the San Jose City Council, representing District 4 until 2014. In 2014, he was elected to the California State Assembly, where he currently serves. As an assemblyman, he has served as the chair of the Assembly Human Service Committee and Assembly Arts, Entertainment, Sports, Tourism, and Internet Media. He started and chaired the Assembly Select Committee on Hate Crime. His endorsements include Santa Clara Police Officers Association, Milpitas Police Officers Association, San Jose Police Officers Association, Cal Firefighters Local 2881, Milpitas Firefighters Local 1699. Also, Ro Khanna, U.S. Congressman, Judy Chu, U.S. Congresswoman, Laurie Smith, Santa Clara County Sheriff, and Lisa Gilmore, Santa Clara City Mayor, among others. He's running against Otto Lee. Lee was born in Hong Kong, then a British colony, in 1967. He moved to the state of California at age 15. He received a BS in Chemical Engineering and Nuclear Engineering from the University of California, Berkeley, a JD from the University of California, Hastings College of Law. In 1989, Lee joined the United States Navy and served full active duty until 1991. He then served in the U.S. Navy Reserves from 1991 until 2018, where his highest rank was commander in the Navy Supply Corps. He served on the Sunnyvale Planning Commission and was then elected to serve on the Sunnyvale City Council from 2003 to 2011, including one term as mayor. Otto was also elected to serve as a Democratic National Committee member, where he helped propel House Democrats to win with one of the largest margins of all time in the recent blue wave. In 2012, he challenged Devin Nunes in the election for U.S. House to represent California's 22nd District. His endorsements include Santa Clara Democratic Party, the Silicon Valley APA Democratic Club, the LGBT BAMEC Organization, the LGBT Stonewall Democrats of the Silicon Valley, the Mercury News, and the Silicon Valley Young Democratic Club. Also, Mike Honda, former U.S. Congressman, Mark Berman, Assembly Member, Evan Lowe, Assembly Member, Susan Ellenberg, Santa Clara County Supervisor, among others. Thank you, men, for joining us this evening. It's our honor to have you to be a part of this North Valley Baptist Church inaugural town hall. As it was in the previous live session, the question and answer format will be the same. We'll ask a question, and if it's a yes or no question, we'd ask that you would respond with either yes, no, or I abstain. If it's an agree or disagree question, we'd ask that you would first answer with a agree, disagree, or I abstain. Following each, we'll give you a minute to elaborate on your response. Our first question this evening will go to Mr. Lee. Question number one, do you want to defund the police? If no, would you condemn defunding the police, such as they've done in Portland, Oregon? Yes, no, or I abstain?
No, I don't agree to defund the police. Our police is doing great work for our community, whether it's the sheriff or the police level in our cities. What we are doing wrong is using our police and our sheriff to do things that they're not trained to do, specifically homelessness or folks who are on the streets that needs help of mental health. I think what we really need to do is to make sure that the funding goes to the right place. And then by having social workers, people who are trained at dealing with mental health issues, and folks who are like veterans myself, who come back from the war zone, who have PTSD and other mental health issues, who became homeless. Those are the folks that we really need help. And it's not the police working on those. Those should be ones that have the ability to understand the help and give the help that they so desperately need. And that's one of the reasons why I'm running for supervisor. I truly believe that by putting the funding to the right places, not only will we be able to help our community, but also help solve our homeless problems in the streets. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. I'd like to ask the same question, Assemblyman Chu. Do you want to defund the police? And if no, would you condemn that action such as we've seen in Portland, Oregon?
The answer is no. I served on the Santa Clara County Mental Health Board for 6 years. And during that time, we implemented a CIT, crisis intervention training, for all the police officers, the frontline officer. And we actually, when I got to Sacramento, we have posted that requirement on the CHPs and also even those people that answer your 911 call. And it is important they are trained and equipped to de-escalate this situation, excuse me. because they're the first responder. You know, they're there. We have police coverage 24 hours a day. You know, 365 days a year, and there's impossible to have the social worker to have the same coverage. You know, to be able to go to the scene when there is a distress call. So I think we need to provide more training to the responder, just like the firefighters. You know, we train them to be paramedic. Why? You know,
Right.
their
Thank you.
job is to fight fires. Well, you know,
Thank
why
you
would
for
we
that.
train them for
Yeah,
be
thank
a
you for that answer,
paramedic?
Art.
Because they're the first
one-
responder.
Yes, sir. Thank you for that answer. Just before we move to the next question, I'll ask this to both of you. Then would you condemn the action taken in Portland then to defund the police department? Just yes or no before we move to the next question. We'll ask you first, Assemblyman Chu.
I'm sorry, you're breaking out a little bit. You know, the Wi-Fi coverage is kind of spotty here.
Before we move to the next question, would you condemn then, yes or no, the funding of the police department as we've seen in Portland?
Oh, I definitely will not support that. No, I think if anything else, they need more funding.
Thank you.
Not
Mr.
defund.
Lee, I'd like to ask you the same question, then we'll move to question number 2.
No, I won't.
All right, question number 2. I'd like to ask Assemblyman Chu. We'll stay with you for this question first. In 2016, voters in the city of Santa Clara overwhelmingly approved Measure R by nearly 90%. Measure R required voter approval for the sale of city park or open space land. Do you believe that the County of Santa Clara Board of Supervisors has the right to sell county park or open space land without the approval of voters, and why?
I mean, I would say that when there's a decision of selling the piece of land, I would really a strong advocate for more open and transparent a government. Regardless what the law or the rules say, I would love to engage with the community so we can make a better decision.
Mr. Lee, I want to ask you the same question. I'll repeat that if you'd like. It's sort of a lengthy question. In 2016, voters in the city of Santa Clara overwhelmingly approved Measure R by nearly 90%. Measure R required voter approval for the sale of city park or open space land. Do you believe that the County of Santa Clara Board of Supervisors has the right to sell county park or open space land without the approval of voters?
Thank you. That's a great question. Our county parks is a very vital part of the quality of life of every resident of Santa Clara County. I'm honestly extremely proud of the county parks. I would bring my girls up to Ed Park to hike up there often, like once a month. And it is amazing to see how beautiful our valley is, our God's given land that we live in. As a Christian myself, I certainly do believe that this is a very important decision that we should not arbitrarily provide people up there to just go ahead and decide to sell these land away without the proper approval of our residents. I think it's truly important to make sure that our residents' voice is being spoken, and preserving these land is extremely important. And I see that the city of Santa Clara has done the right thing, put it to the ballot, and the 90% vote clearly shows how important this is to our residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Our third question in this segment will go to Mr. Lee. What is your position on socialized health care? Should the government be responsible with providing free health care to every citizen? And if so, how should that be funded?
Thank you. We do have a broken healthcare system. This Obamacare that we have right now is actually something more of a Band-Aid. We still have lots of issues of people that's not being covered right now. And I do believe that there's better ways to do this. Whether you want to call it the government fund, the socialized, or single payer, or whatnot, ultimately, I really do believe that everybody should be able to receive healthcare. Of course, the hard part is how you're going to get paid. Right now, I think we have a system with many, many different insurance companies that's taking a lot of the profits that really should be used onto actually making our health better. And I think by having the profits of the insurance company being removed at the end of the day, we will be able to get better care by making sure that we're not having these people, insurance company, determining our life, whether we get certain treatment because it's too darn expensive. Therefore, I really do believe that there's a better tomorrow. We need to make sure our employers a lot of times are paying for a lot of our care already, but they go to the insurance company. I think there are many ways that employers and companies can work together to make sure that the
Thank you. Yes, sir.
be working.
Thank you for your answer. Assemblyman Chu, I want to ask you the same question. What's your position on socialized health care? Should the government be responsible with providing every citizen with free health care? And if so, how should that be funded?
That's a good question. I believe that the income disparity, it is the biggest barrier to equal access to healthcare, to education, to childcare, and you name it. So I also believe that every citizen should have some kind of healthcare, and I mean healthcare, not the current system, what I call the current system as sick care. Only when you're sick, you go into the system. So I think the healthcare should provide a lot of preventive measurements. And the fact that if we can get more people the true healthcare with the preventive measurement, I think it will lower the healthcare or sick care costs for the whole nation, for the whole community. Insurance company because I sit on the Assembly Insurance Committee, they're a very, very regulated field. We regulate how much they can charge the insurer. So the government can step in and make sure that everybody has the health care.
Yes, sir.
Preventive health care, I think will save us a lot of money.
Thank you. Sorry to speak over you. Just trying to stay to our 1 minute.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But thank you for your answers, man. Let me go to the next question, and we'll stay with Assemblyman Chu for this question. Begin with you. Are you for or against issuing additional permits to grow the number of marijuana dispensaries within county limits? And do you believe the current dispensaries in our county are good for our local community? So yes, no, or I abstain.
No. You can see, look at my record as when I was on the San Jose City Council. I'm one of the field that really opposing the use of marijuana, recreational use of marijuana. Unfortunately, the voters in California passed the ballot measurement. So what I can do is really making more, trying to regulate that field. But to answer your question, no.
I want to ask you the same question. Are you for or against additional permits to grow the dispensaries, the marijuana dispensaries within our county? And do you feel like the dispensaries that are currently open are good for our local community?
Yes, I have no support or plan to open or supporting any more dispensaries than we have. In the city of Sunnyvale, I have voted against the opening of dispensaries.
In 2003?
That's something that my record would show. It is something that we really need to work on because after all, the state has already passed this issue. And I think it is truly important that we need to make sure that we regulate these dispensaries to make sure that they are safe and to make sure that the public is safe. Thank you.
For our fifth question, we'll stay with Mr. Lead. Do you believe the local government, such as the city or the county, has the right to impede, limit, or close down religious places of worship, as we've seen happen during COVID-19? You can say I abstain.
Yes. The county does have the right to issue the order, like the public safety order that Dr. Sarah Cody has issued. And I think it is important to make sure that our residents are being safe. I certainly have issues regarding how it's been implemented from time to time. And I do think that there are things that we could have done far better in order to open us sooner. One of the biggest things that we could do, of course, is the wearing of the mask. And I think the sooner we have more people wearing masks, the less the transmission is, the sooner we can open it up. And for those, I'm very hopeful that our county will hopefully get to this orange stage, because if you see most recently, the county has ordered that we are going to go back, and once we reach the orange tier, to open up, say, place of assembly to at least 25% capacity. I'm really excited about it. I strongly support these risk reduction measures that we can open, because as you have mentioned earlier, the need of our faith-based community is so important to help, because divorce rates have been extremely high during this COVID period. The stress is very, very significant.
Thank you.
And your churches serve a huge role to help solve many of these community problems.
Thank you for your answer. Assemblyman Chu, I'd like to ask you the same question. And the question basically is, do you believe the government, local government, the county, the city, has the right to impede or even really shut down religious worship services, as we've seen happen during this COVID-19 pandemic?
Yeah, I read about what happened in your church on the news. I think they made the decision in the name of protecting the public. But I do believe that the higher level of government, the state, or it'd be better off from the federal government to provide a very strict guideline of how to open, different businesses or a place of worship. I work with the churches, River of Life, of in Santa Clara and 101, the old 7-Up factory, trying to having a meeting with the county to discuss, the opening of the churches. But just regretfully to say that they're very, very slow in responding to me. And with a second wave is coming, they felt that, is to protect the public, the better interest of the public. That's the right thing to do.
Yes, sir. All right, thank you for your answer. I want to stay with you for this next question, and I appreciate you both of you men doing very well sticking to your time. It's a help to me as well. Question number 6, do you believe it's the government's responsibility to fund social programs such as we've seen with free homes and cars and phones and drug injection sites and free hypodermic needles? Yes, no, or I abstain?
I would say yes, because again, it's an alternative way for incarceration. We know how much to lock up a person in the prison. The last time I checked, it's about cost the taxpayer about $70,000 a year. That's more money to send your kids to Berkeley or Stanford. So we're doing that in a preventive measure, but it shouldn't stop there. We should have money invest in the rehab process. So we will hopefully get them out of the habit or whatever you want to call it, and to be able to give them a chance to be back in the community, to be a productive member of the community.
All right,
so
thank you for your answer. Mr. Lee, let me ask you the same question. And do you believe it's the government's responsibility to fund social programs, such as we've seen with free homes, free phones, in some cases drug injection sites, and even free hypodermic needles? Yes, no, or I abstain, and then you can elaborate on your answer.
I'll go and abstain on this one, because it really depends on what social program we're talking about. After school program for our kids, for example, is a type of social program, or whether you're talking about preschools that's not funded by K through 12, is also could be considered a social program. And there are many ways we could use social program to be better. One thing I truly believe as a father of 3 girls going to school, 15, 12, and 9 years old, is no, it's truly that funding going to our children is far better than spending money into incarceration, building jails, putting people behind bar. It costs over $50,000 to $60,000 to keep one inmate in jail. This is really bad way of spending money. I think it would be far better to put the money into our children's for their future. And that's the reason why I do believe that based on the questions, I mean, certainly some programs might be too out there that I won't support, but certainly there are good social programs the government needs to invent to protect all of us. Thank you.
Thank you for your answer. This will be our final
The
question for this
was
segment. Thank both of you
specifically-
gentlemen for being with us on this town hall. And I'll start with Mr. Lee, and then we'll go to Assemblyman Chu for this final question. Do you agree or disagree with the new law, Senate Bill 145, that allows a 10-year gap between a predator and a victim? The result of Senate Bill 145 could result in child molesters not being arrested. For instance, a 24-year-old man could groom and molest a 14-year-old girl or a 14-year-old boy, and the law would not be able to prosecute them. Would you agree, disagree, or abstain? And then you can elaborate, if you will, on your answer.
Well, I don't understand the bill very well, so I've not read the bill, so I don't want to give an opinion without having read it fully. But understanding your question is that certainly our minors needs to be protected from molestation of adults, and this is something that is sickening, is disgusting in our community, that we know it happens, and I certainly do not believe that a 25-year-old should be able to molest a 15-year-old and that you call that legal. We put people in jail for that. If they're teachers at 25 years old and having sexual relations with a student at 15 years old, that teacher needs to go to jail. So I certainly, I just want to answer your question of my view on this issue is we absolutely need to protect. Like I said, I have a 15, 12, and 9-year-old, and trust me, I will do anything to make sure they are safe from predators. Thank you.
Let me ask the same question to Assemblyman Chu this evening. Do you agree or disagree with the new law, Senate Bill 145, that allows a 10-year gap between a predator and a victim? The result of the bill could result in a child molester not being arrested. For example, a 24-year-old man could groom a 14-year-old young lady or a 14-year-old young man and then never be prosecuted. Would you agree with this, disagree, or abstain? And then you can elaborate on your response.
I would have to abstain on it. Embarrassing to say that this one didn't cross my desk without too much of my attention. But every year, in any given legislative session, there's about 2,000 bills. So I haven't read the full text of this 145, but so I will have to abstain on that. But I'm very supportive of the public safety, you know, to make sure that we are safe, you know, where properties are safe. I did be able to get more than, I think it's $15 million for the city of Santa Clara, San Jose, Fremont, and Newark to address the car breaking issue. If people broke into your car and steal your personal electronic devices, I wanted to add the software, the value of your, what's the content of your personal devices to the $950 threshold.
Thank you for your answer. And just as we close, I'll just say in reference to Senate Bill 145 that the LGBT BAMEC organization and the LGBT Stonewall Democrats have both fully endorsed that bill, and those were endorsers of, I believe, Mr. Lee. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. It might be good to study up on that bill. Thank you, men, so much for joining us this evening. It's been our honor to host you. Now we're going to go to another video, and we'll have Neil Malmon at this time. And here's Neil, and you'll enjoy hearing him.
Let's wrap this up with an overview of how to vote for the rest of the propositions. I'll give you a hint. The answer is no. okay? But let me give you a brief overview. And if you want a detailed analysis, I recommend you go to the vac.org website where we go through each one in gory detail. We'll tell you all the pros and cons of it, but right now we don't have time, so we're just going to go over this. Proposition 14, they want $5.5 billion for state stem cell research, okay? Well, basically they borrowed $3 billion before, they want another $5.5 billion. Well, remember, I said what a bond is a double tax on the future. No more taxes. Last time they said it was $3 billion, now it's $5 billion, it'll cost $10 billion to pay it off. Folks, the government should not be doing this research. If this research was important, then private companies, venture, look at California, right? Look at Silicon Valley. We got all these venture capitalists. Why aren't they putting the money? If this research is so great, why aren't they putting the money in? In fact is that it's a boondoggle, and it's not going to do what they want it to do, and worse, it's going to be using unethical embryos for research, and that is murder. Okay, so Prop 14 is a no. Proposition 15, a tax on commercial and industrial properties for education and local government. So basically, and then they say it's for the children. Okay, so this is, if you raise property taxes, they want to raise property taxes, just on the businesses. But folks, if you think about this, when I raise property tax on that restaurant, guess what that's going to do? He's going to have to raise the prices of his food. So that's a tax on me. If I raise property tax on an apartment complex, guess what that property owner is going to do? He's going to raise my rent. If I raise property taxes on an office that I rent, guess what I'm going to have to do? I'm going to have to take that money out of my profit or out of my salaries to my people. So this is not a good idea. Any tax is a bad tax. This is not going to help. And guess what? If they need the money for the children or the firefighters or whatever, let them take it from where they're wasting it. Don't say yes. Say no on Prop 15. Prop 16. Prop 16 is a horrible thing. It's a return to affirmative action is what they call it. But here's the reality. It's government-sanctioned racism. Look, this is a very dangerous slope. And as a minority myself, people should be afraid of this. Right now they're saying, if we pass this, then we can give minorities special preference. But folks, imagine one day this government gets taken over by a group of people that think minorities are bad. Then they have a precedence to discriminate against people. You don't want a law that allows you to discriminate about anybody for any reason. And especially, this discriminates against Asians. And so this is a no. Proposition 70. Proposition 70 would allow parolees to vote. There's a reason why you lose your right to influence our laws when you're deemed a lawbreaker. Yes, there are unjustly convicted people, and there are corrupt lawmakers, but we need to fix that, not compensate for it. So that's a reason to fix the law. So this is a no. No, parolees should not be allowed to vote. Proposition 18. Would allow some 17-year-olds to vote if they turn 18 by general election day. Folks, we already know that when you're 18, your mind is not fully developed, right? I've got all these passions, so it's already a problem for 18-year-olds, and now you want to allow 17-year-olds to vote? I think it's a bad thing. Let's stick with the 18, and we'll go there. So no on Prop 18 for the 17-year-olds. Proposition 19, property taxes. In short, folks over 55 can buy a new house and keep their old property tax. That sounds good. But here's the problem. It cuts another deeper tax. It actually makes things worse. And it raises more money. Anytime somebody says this will raise more money, that's a flag. Guess what? That money is coming from somewhere. Just say no. If we want to give the 55-year-olds the ability to buy a new house somewhere else, then it should be a proposition that only allows that, nothing else. So this is a no. Okay. Now, we'll come back to the rest. There are a few more that we'll finish off in the next and final session. Thank you very much.
Next, I'd like to introduce you to candidates running for the West Valley Mission College Board of Trustees. We have pre-recorded statements from Peter Kuo and Carl Watanabe. You'll hear from them now.
Hello everyone, 大家好, Namaste, ¿Cómo estás? My name is Peter Kuo. I'm running for the Community College Board of Trustee for Mission College and West Valley College. It's my privilege here to share my story with you. I came to this country at 14 years old from Taiwan, and I really believe that education is imperative for our next generation, especially the high school students. If elected, I will make sure that these two community colleges are the best within our community. I want to thank Carl Watanabe for serving our community for the past 8 years, but I believe it's time for a new opinion, a new perspective for an immigrant like me, a culturally competent candidate to serve you. Thank you.
Welcome, and thanks for having me over. My name is Carl Watanabe. I'm a present board member of the West Valley Mission College, and for the past 2 terms, or just shy of 8 years now. I've started as an analog test engineer working at Analog Devices just down the street across in Milpitas, but I presently am retired for about 1.5 years now. And I've been taking advantage of that retirement by focusing more of my time as a board trustee. And in the process, what I did was actually take classes at Mission College for a little over a year with the goal of attaining a certificate in digital music. While I was there, I saw a flyer to play tennis on the tennis team. And sure enough, despite my advanced age, I was able to make the team and play for the team. So, what I believe is that these 8 years of experience and as a student athlete makes me the qualified candidate to continue being a board member of the West Valley Mission College. Thank you.
Okay, folks, welcome back. We're going to cover the last few propositions, and then we're going to wrap this up here. Okay, rent control, Proposition 21. Rent control is a horrible idea. It's socialism. It has been proven to decrease housing ability, dissuade more apartments from being built, and lead to slumlords. In fact, if you want to make sure that there is less housing available, make sure that nobody can charge the market rate for a rent. And it has lots of other bad consequences. Come to our website and we'll show you what those are. So Prop 21, rent control, bad, and guess what? It will hurt people. In fact, the cost of housing will go up. Why? Because there won't be enough available inventory. Okay, Proposition 23, kidney dialysis. They tried this a few years ago, it didn't work. This is a no. This is crony corporatism. Basically, the government, these are larger hospitals, don't want to have competition with people who can provide much cheaper kidney dialysis. So don't allow this to happen. This is a no. And getting the government involved is just going to make things worse. If somebody who has a kidney dialysis business kills you or kills your loved one, you should be able to sue them for a full amount of money. You don't need the government to get involved except when you start suing them. So this is not a solution. Okay, Proposition 24, new consumer privacy rules. These are hard. Privacy is always good. But here's the problem. The minute you get government in to decide what can and can't be done, bad idea. Saying no. If you have a problem with privacy, you should be able to sue the company that revealed your privacy. That's it. Okay. Proposition 25, bail, stopping bail. Basically, the idea for Proposition 25 is they want to abandon the idea of bail and, get this, have a software program that will figure out if you're likely to run and not come to your court date. Now, folks, this is a very bad idea because it asks us to toss out an age-old system and rely on an unelected, unaccountable software programmer to figure out the bail prediction system. Who died and made that programmer a king or lord or judge? This is a bad idea altogether. Do we want software deciding who's innocent and guilty? Okay. We have now, those are all the state proposition. You're going to have a bunch of local propositions. And let me just say this, it's really easy to figure that out. Most of the local propositions are no. There's one that I'll talk about separately. It's a don't care, or at least no recommendation. All the local propositions that are seized are taxes or bonds or something like that for schools or libraries. Folks, remember, they have plenty of money. They're just wasting our money. So tell them to go and use the money that they have properly. So vote no on all those local taxes and bonds. There is one which probably won't apply to you, but it's for Los Altos. It's whether there are term limits. You can read that and you can decide. I have no recommendation on that. You can find out many more details in the guide or at vac.org. Now, let me wrap this up, brothers and sisters. If anyone says Christians should not be involved in politics, they're saying that all these things should be legal. Slavery, segregation, racism, kidnapped brides, child labor, gladiatorial combat, death games, infanticide, child marriage, temple prostitution, child sexual abuse, child prostitution, wives of property, cruel treatment of prisoners, inequality of man, and thousands of other laws. You see, all those laws were changed because Christians got involved in politics, because they said, no, this goes against God's laws and God's moral laws and God's desire for mankind. You see, all those, imagine those Christians who changed those laws and said, I don't need to change the laws, I just need to preach the gospel. Folks, The gospel was preached for 200 years in two of the most Christian nations in the world, England and the United States, and slavery continued all those 200 years. It wasn't until Christians like William Wilberforce and the people who founded the Republican Party got involved and said, we have to stop this, that laws were changed. How can we be so heartless not to be involved in politics? May our Lord and Savior bless you and go do the right thing. God bless you.
We appreciate Neil's contribution to tonight's town hall. Tonight, I want to introduce you to our final live segment and candidates for District 5. We have tonight, via Zoom, Robert O'Keefe and Suds Jane. Let me introduce you to our two candidates. Robert O'Keefe is a native Santa Claran, a product of our local schools from grammar school through college. He retired from the California Highway Patrol after 30 years of service. O'Keefe attained the rank of lieutenant, overseeing all patrol operations in San Francisco and San Mateo counties. Bob is an active member of the community, a board member of the Old Quad Residents Association, a past member of the city's Neighborhood University Relations Subcommittee, 2018 city clerk candidate, and the community advocate for responsible residential zoning. If elected, O'Keefe says he'll be engaged and vote on all issues unique to District 5, a new downtown, historic properties, future BART, and a world-class university. Citywide issues such as affordable housing, traffic, infrastructure, sustainability, protecting our family neighborhoods, and financial recovery from COVID-19. Some of his endorsements include Santa Clara Police Officers Association, the AFL-CIO South Bay Labor Council, Santa Clara Firefighters Local 1171, Lisa Gilmore, Mayor for the City of Santa Clara, Kathy Watanabe, Council Member, City of Santa Clara, Debbie Davis, Council Member, City of Santa Clara, among others. He's running against Suds Jane. Suds has a degree from MIT. He says he'll embrace technology to make City Hall more efficient and responsive. He says he's proud to have taught algebra and currently teaches climate change science in public schools. Suds has served on the Santa Clara Planning Commission for 5 years and also serves on the El Camino Real Citizens Advisory Committee and the Chief of Police Advisory Committee. His endorsements include Santa Clara Democratic Party, Silicon Valley APA Democratic Club, the LGBT Baymek Organization, the LGBT Stonewall Democrats of the Silicon Valley, the Sierra Club, the Mercury News, and Teamsters 856. He's also endorsed by Santa Clara County Board members Cindy Chavez and David Cortese, Assembly members Evan Lowe, among others. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight, and you'll be wrapping up our town hall this evening. And as we've done in the previous live segments, the questions will be issued the same way. We'll ask questions, and if it's a yes or no answer, we'd ask you to answer first yes, no, or I abstain, and of course then you'll have a minute to elaborate on your response. If it's a question with an agree or disagree answer, we'd ask you to first answer agree, disagree, or I abstain. Any other kind of question, of course, you'll have a minute to respond initially to each question. For our first question of this final segment of the North Valley Baptist Church Town Hall, I'd like to start with Suds Jane. Question number one is this: what is your position regarding the new downtown for the city of Santa Clara?
Thank you. I have been a planning commissioner for 5 years. I really understand land use, development, affordable housing, traffic issues. As a board member of the Old Quad, since it was restarted in 2014, I worked really hard with other members to restore the Franklin Street grid pattern to the project. So as a council member, I plan to discuss and support the project, and I've been very active in discussions of the downtown in the past, and I will continue to do so.
Thank you for your answer. Mr. O'Keefe, I want to ask you the same question tonight. What's your position on rebuilding the new downtown for the city of Santa Clara?
Thank you, Justin. First of all, I'd like to thank the North Valley Baptist Church, Pastor Trieber, and your congregation for having us tonight. On the issue of downtown, I've been working hard to bring the downtown back. This was actually started by two other groups, a group that I'm a board member of now, the Old Quad Residents Association, and also a group called Reclaim Our Downtown. They did the lion work to get this going. It's going to happen. It's a project. It's the largest project going to be in District 5. It's very important that the District 5 representative be fully active in this. I am the only representative or only candidate that can be fully active due to some conflict of interest laws. I can engage fully and I can vote on the downtown, and I certainly will. This will be happening very shortly now. The city's already in progress of doing a lot of the groundwork to get it done. I'm excited to see what happens there, and I'll fully engage in that. Thank you.
For our second question, we'll stay with Mr. O'Keefe. The Democratic platform for 2020 states it's past time to end the failed war on drugs. Do you agree with the Democratic Party's stance on the war on drugs? Should funding to federal agencies like the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency, be rerouted to educational programs as the Democratic National Party platform states in its justice outline? Yes, no, or you can abstain and then elaborate.
I'm going to say that I do not agree with the statement. If that is the Democratic Party's statement, I don't know it is. As you noted, I worked for the California Highway Patrol for 30 years. For several years on that, I was on loan to Department of Justice. I worked as an undercover narcotics agent right here in Santa Clara County. I do not think we should give up the war on drugs. I think if we do that, we surrender a whole generation to terrible addiction problems. We need to come up with ways to combat the drug dealers. We need to find ways to have sympathy and care for the drug users. But in no way should we defund any of these agencies, especially the ones that stop the drugs from coming across the border into our country, into our state, and affecting our citizens. I will work hard to ensure those programs keep going. Thank you.
Thank you for your answer. I'd like to ask Sudge the same question. Mr. Jane, it's past time to end the failed war on drugs, so says the Democratic Party platform. Do you agree with that statement, that it's time to take money for the DEA, agencies such as that, reroute that to maybe educational programs? What would your position be on, is it time to end the failed war on drugs?
I don't think we should end fighting drug addiction and fighting drugs, but there are certain drugs that were disproportionately enforced. I think crack was enforced very differently than cocaine, and I think that was wrong. I think that marijuana, as the voters of California have deemed, can be beneficial in terms of treating some ailments like treatments from cancer. So I fully support decriminalizing marijuana, but the other drugs, I'm not in favor of decriminalizing.
Just as a follow-up, it'd be interesting just for our viewers to know, Mr. O'Keefe, he mentioned that he was for the decriminalizing of marijuana fully. Would you also agree with that position?
Fully decriminalizing marijuana, no. The marijuana of today is 10 times stronger than the marijuana of the time, say, in my youth. It is a large gang and outside the country source of income for violence. So we cannot stop the war on marijuana. And we really need to enforce the marijuana laws. Recreational marijuana is a whole different topic that we can discuss, but we cannot give up enforcing our marijuana laws.
Thank you for that answer. Mr. Jane, I'm going to stay with you to start off with this next question. We asked this question in a previous segment, but I'd like to hit it again and just see where you men stand. The National Democratic Party platform for 2020 says, we believe that if you aren't old enough to drink, you are not old enough to be sentenced to life without parole. Do you believe that an 18, 19, or 20-year-old criminal offender convicted of heinous crimes such as murder in the first degree should be exempt from life imprisonment without parole? Yes, no, or I abstain, and then elaborate, please.
Yes, Christians teach about redemption and forgiveness. There are many times when a young kid makes a mistake in life and should pay for that mistake, but I don't believe that we should throw that person away. So life without parole, I believe, is wrong. I think we should make a very long sentence, and we should monitor that person and see if they have truly repented and been redeemed. Thank you.
I asked this as a follow-up in a previous segment. How do you make that mesh with the Democrat Party's recent push to lower the voting age to 17, where it seems as though we might be saying somebody in that 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old age bracket is not capable of serving time for a crime they committed because they're not fully developed mentally, they're not where they ought to be yet, but yet we trust them with a vote. How can we make these two things be compatible, or can they be compatible?
Yeah, so young people generally don't vote. My son, I have trouble getting him to vote. I don't think that having younger people vote will have a great impact, but you know, we are passing laws that do affect them, and the vote is not nearly as consequential as, say, murdering somebody. So I don't see that there's any harm in giving a 17-year-old the vote. We give 18-year-olds in the military guns and weapons. There's not very much difference in 1 year.
Let me ask the same question to Mr. O'Keefe as far as this. Do you believe that an 18, 19, or 20-year-old criminal offender convicted of a heinous crime, and we'll just use the example, murder in the first degree, should be exempt from serving a life imprisonment sentence without parole?
Thank you. That's a great question. And I'm glad you clarified for both of us, 18, 19, or 20-year-olds, that they are adults. And you use the word exempt. No, I do not think they should be exempt categorically across the board. I am also a Christian, and I do believe in redemption. And I think every case should be looked at individually. But if you exempt everybody, some heinous felon would never have that consequence or be deterred because of that consequence. So I think every case needs to be looked at on a one-on-one basis. The people that can be redeemed will be redeemed. And the ones that can't, I'm sure it's just a very few, would have to suffer the consequences of their act. But I would not exempt it categorically across the board.
Thank you, men, for your answers. Let me stay with Mr. O'Keefe for this next question. I asked this question previously on the county level, but it's a little bit different when we narrow it down to the city of Santa Clara. Currently, our city, the city of Santa Clara, has one licensed marijuana dispensary. Are you for or against issuing additional permits to grow the number of dispensaries within the city limits? Also, would you support a charter to limit or eliminate the permit approval of additional dispensaries? And do you believe the dispensary is a benefit to the community? Mr. O'Keefe, we'll start with you.
Well, I'm going to take that last question first. I'm not sure if it is a benefit to the community. It very well could be, depending on person's use of recreational marijuana. It might stop them from going into dangerous situations and the illegal drug trade. To answer the first question, I really don't know. I could give an answer based on my law enforcement experience, but I'm willing to be open-minded. We have a brand new police chief. I would work with the community, the members of the police department, the chief, and the other council members to really find out what's the best way to go. And I would not want to limit myself by saying no, but it would take a lot of work to convince me that it's a good idea to have a drugstore.
Thank you for that answer. Sudge Jane, I'd like to ask you the same question. I can repeat it if you'd like. Currently, our city has one marijuana dispensary within the city limits. Would you be for adding additional permits, issuing additional permits to grow the number of dispensaries within the city of Santa Clara? And do you feel like the current dispensary has been a benefit or a positive for our community?
My understanding is that we don't have any dispensaries in the city limits. I believe that Airfield is in San Jose, that's the closest one, and they can deliver recreational marijuana to the residents of Santa Clara. So Santa Clarans already can get recreational marijuana or medical marijuana if they so desire through deliveries. I believe that the city of Santa Clara is missing out on revenue. San Jose makes about 15, 16, 17 million dollars on their dispensaries. I know that there are law enforcement costs associated with that, but the voters have voted on Measure M, and I believe that we should respect the vote of the people.
So just to get a clarification on yes or no, as far as adding more dispensaries,
yes,
would you be pro or con, for or against something like that?
I've spoken at planning commission meetings. I believe the best way to do it is to limit them, maybe 3 dispensaries, and eliminate cash sales, because I believe cash sales lead to illegal activity.
Thank you for your answers, men. Let me go to this will be our final question of our segment, and I want to thank both of you for staying with us during this time and being a part of the town hall. We know that you're busy, and it's honored us for you to be here and to join us. Let me pose you this question. We've asked everybody so far. This question is very important to us, of course, here at North Valley Baptist Church, but also many people who are watching and will see this. Do you believe that local government, such as the county or the city, has the right to impede, limit, or close down religious places of worship, as it has done in Santa Clara during COVID-19? I'll start with Suds Jane for that question, and then we'll go to Mr. O'Keefe. Mr. Jane.
Yes, I'm a scientist. I actually do cloud research at Palo Alto Research Center as a volunteer, and I am very familiar with aerosols. I measure aerosols. I know how long they hang in the air. And the government already does force people to leave areas. We force people to leave in advance of a hurricane. We force people to leave in advance of a wildfire. So the government does have control over people for their own public safety. I believe that what the scientists are saying about the aerosols, if you look at the White House, there are 34 people infected by COVID there. There was a case in Mount Vernon, Washington, where 52 people in a choir practice were infected due to these aerosols. I think that it's appropriate that these services be done outdoors, as they are being done now, and with safety precautions governed by science. And so I don't believe it's overreach for the county health officer to protect public safety by prohibiting these services indoors. I'm on the board of a nonprofit. We do lectures now online. We actually have expanded the number of participants because we're online. We have people from Washington State, New York City attending our lectures.
I want to thank you for your answer. The time is up. Just to go back to our previous, there's a dispensary on Saratoga Avenue that we have confirmed there within the city of Santa Clara. Mr. O'Keefe, I want to ask you the same question. Do you believe that local government, such as the county or city, has the right to impede, limit, or close down religious places of worship, as it's done in Santa Clara with COVID-19?
I'm a strong believer in the separation of church and state, but I'm also a believer in the separation of state and church. And what I mean by that is, at the beginning of the pandemic, nobody really knew. The science didn't know, and there was some changes on the science along the way. What's the best course of action? After a while, it appeared that there was a course of action that was better to go one way than the other. I don't believe that closing down a place of worship or picking out a place of worship alone is the county or city's just right to do that. I saw an ad or something just the other day that showed a packed airplane with the middle seats nobody sitting in. And then I saw an empty church with pews. It says one's allowed, one's not. I can't figure that out. I cannot figure out why. I think if we could figure out dining, I think if we could figure out hospitals, I think if we can figure out hairdressers and nail salons, there should be a way that government can figure out how a church can hold services indoors safely. So my answer was, at the very beginning of an emergency, yes. But as that goes on, and we're still in a very major time, and I think the emergency part has passed, I think there should be a way that government allows worship indoors.
Thank you for your answer. Thank both of you men for joining us tonight. And again, these have been candidates Robert O'Keefe and Suds Jane, candidates for Santa Clara District 5. Thank you men for joining us. I want to address our audience. Thank you so much for being a part, I'll say it again, of an historic event, the first annual North Valley Baptist Church Santa Clara Town Hall. We were checking a little while ago and people were watching not just in our area but around the country, even outside of the country. And it's so important in days like these, times like these, that you and I, as Christian people, make our voice heard. We do that by being in a church pew on Sunday night and Wednesday night. But we can also do that at the ballot box. There's an election this year. It's important that you let your voice be heard. Take your Bible to the ballot box. You say literally carry it? Carry your Bible value, your principle to the ballot box, and you vote according to Bible principle. November 3rd is the big day. Make sure you pray. Ask the Lord to direct you. And Santa Clara residents, Santa Clara County residents, North Valley Baptist Church membership, let's let our voice be known. God bless you. God bless America. God bless Santa Clara County and Santa Clara City. We love you folks. We'll see you. Vote on November 3rd.